With the Minister's concurrence, I'll share time with him, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Minister. Minister, there's a lot of ground to cover, and I'll try not to waste your time, and I'd be grateful if you could try to answer my questions. Minister, the Beaver Lodge has been in the capital plan for 3 years now with no expenditures. Will there be expenditures this year on the Beaver Lodge hospital?
That's probably a question, member, to better direct to a different ministry than mine.
All right. Then let's move on to do you know how many businesses left Alberta in 2016?
Actually, I know that Alberta continues to have great advantages for business to come here.
Okay, so that would mean you don't know how many businesses left Alberta in 2016?
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are estimates of the number of businesses that have left Alberta. I don't have that estimate.
All right. Do you know how many businesses dissolved in 2016 in Alberta?
No.
All right. Okay. Both those things affect your revenue, Minister. That's why I'm asking. Do you know what the default rate on student loans in 2016 is compared to previous years?
I think we have that number. Certainly the Minister of Advanced Education would have that number, but I don't have it here today.
Okay. Do you know how much the average weekly earnings of Government of Alberta employees increased in 2016?
Of Government of Alberta employees?
Yes, please. What was the change in average weekly earnings?
Let me just see if we have that number here. We have it for...
And if it's convenient, what do you project the average weekly change will be in 2017 as well?
For government employees?
Yes, please. The ones you pay.
Sure. I don't have that breakout here.
Could I get it in writing later on, Minister?
I can tell you in the past where that was.
With all due respect.
Going forward, though.
The answer needs a number, and I'd be grateful if you could get it for me later if you can't get it for me now.
Sure. The only caveat I'd put on is that there might be, it might be affected by settlements of contracts that we don't know at this point in time. And going forward, I can give you the information going back, but I can't give you the information going forward.
Fair enough. What do you anticipate the settlement of contracts will be in 2017-18?
2017 going forward?
Yes.
We, again, I'm not going to be able to give you the answer to that because the answer really needs to come out of tables that are ongoing at this time, and so negotiations, unfortunately, won't happen here today. But again, I can give you changes to average weekly earnings of government employees in the past.
Okay, thanks. Minister, through the chair, of course, do you know what the uptake and the measurable impacts have been, or what you expect them to be of the investor tax credit? Do you have targets for that?
Yeah, we certainly, Economic Development Trade is tracking that. And I can try and endeavor to find that number.
The said could be same good. What about the capital investment tax credit? Same thing?
Yeah, both of those would be tracked by Economic Development Trade.
Okay, all right. Mark me surprised that you don't track it in your department, but I accept your answer.
Well, I just need to remind you that we did set up the program, but then transferred implementation over to Economic Development Trade.
Okay. What about those small business tax instituted on January 1st, 2017?
Total amount?
Do you know what yes, please.
Total amount on a yearly basis?
Yes.
Is in the neighborhood of $185 million.
$185 million.
And that's to reduce it from 3% to 2% for all Alberta eligible small businesses.
Okay. Loans to seniors for home repairs. Any idea what's been loaned out to seniors for home repairs?
That would be tracked through the Minister of Seniors and Community Supports. Seniors and Community. social housing. Community,
All right, well,
seniors and
let's keep
social
trying, Minister. I live in hope. Alberta Treasury Board's economic diversification loans. That's got to be Treasury Board. You can't tell me that's not Treasury Board. How much economic diversification loans have gone out, please, Minister?
You know, that's not how I. Can you tell me the page you were on?
No, I'm just looking for you have a program for through ATB for economic diversification loans.
ATB.
How much money did ATB lend out?
Yes, we have that. We have that. I just didn't recognize the name of the loan or the name of the program you were talking about.
Sometimes I talk fast, Minister. I'll take the blame for that. ATB, please.
ATB Financial? Yes. Here we go. So this is the one here. So it's, as you rightly point out, ATB Financial is lending monies out, and by giving that financial institution $1.5 billion in liquidity and capital to expand small and medium-sized business loans, ATB increased its loans by $335 million during its fourth quarter. So
okay.
That's the number.
AIMCO, are you comfortable that future appointments will be of people that have adequate financial expertise to maintain the high level of return to the Alberta taxpayers that the past AIMCO board members will have? And I'm not talking about the appointments to date. I'm thinking of the 7 coming up here.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for the question. I am really confident that AIMCO will be able to bring in and keep their high level of appointees to that board, both the existing board members and subsequent new ones that come on.
Okay. All right. Well, that's nice to hear, Minister, but that leads me to the next question. Why did you lower the standards that you're able to appoint people by then, if it's so important to you to do that? And I'm happy that it's important to you. Leaves me to the obvious question. Why did you lower the standards that people could have when you appoint them?
I disagree that the standards have been lowered. I think they have been rationalized so that redundant provisions in the AIMCO bylaws were removed and specifically brought in line with the Government of Alberta's APEGA guidelines, which are there for all ABCs.
Okay, well, all right. Well, let's just agree to disagree on that. Could you explain the potential impacts of on AIMCO of Total Energy's takeover of Savannah Energy, which AIMCO invested in last year? How will that affect AIMCO?
AIMCO takes care of its own investment decisions. Government does not involve itself in those investment decisions. What we do, what we have done is been involved with the governance of AIMCO to the extent that I just explained. And AIMCO continues to achieve a rate of return that's significant in terms of
I'm aware of that. Okay, I thank you for that. AGLC, Minister, you're in charge of that, yes?
Yep.
Charitable funding has become a major source of frustration for a lot of nonprofits, which help Albertans during this time of need. Have you done anything to address the widespread concern that AGLC rules are ambiguous and inconsistently applied?
Actually, that's not a complaint that has come to me. I certainly am aware of the gaming model we have in this province and how the previous government set that up. The Government of Alberta, in terms of AIMCO, makes sure their governance is in good shape, and I've appointed 2 people recently to that board. And there are more appointments coming up in addition to the chair. So on the governance end of things, they're pretty well organized.
So Minister, I have to ask you then, do you know the AGLC rules and how they work?
Yeah.
Yes?
Generally, yeah.
So that's a yes.
Generally, sure.
Okay. Are you happy with them, or do you plan on modernizing them at any time in the future? Because that is a goal that the government had, and it's set aside. So are you still planning on modernizing those rules that you know?
You know, we're always looking to evaluate possible improvements to the charitable gaming model that will benefit charities, operators, and players.
Will you do it this year? Since we're talking about this year's business plan, will you do it this year, Minister?
We will take steps through AIMCO making recommendations to
AGLC, Minister. I'm trying to be straight. I'm just trying to keep us on the same track, Minister.
Everyone's trying to keep me on the same track. Thank you very much.
AGLC.
So AGLC, yes, there will be improvements coming forward.
This year?
Yes, there will be improvements coming forward this year to update or improve the way AGLC does different things. I just need to remind you, happy hours were one thing that got improved. Young performers in bars was another thing that came forward that was improved.
Okay.
We'll look for other things as we go forward.
No, I appreciate this, but if you don't mind, I only got 9 more minutes to ask you questions, Minister. I want to talk to you about your revenue projections. Your revenue projections, what year does the revenue projections that you have put forward include the new pipelines? Is it for this year, 2017-18? Is there any pipeline, new pipeline revenue in 27-18 revenue?
No, it's 2020.
Okay, so up until 2020, there is no pipeline revenue in your projections.
Correct.
Okay, and how much revenue do you anticipate getting from pipelines in 2020?
2020.
New pipelines, of course, we're talking about.
Just give us a second. Do you have another question while we look for the official?
Yeah, I do. The bitumen royalty is anticipated. You budgeted them to, estimated that to double pretty much 2017-18 over 2016-2017. What do you attribute the doubling of bitumen royalties to?
Production in the
volume or price, or some other, or both, or some other.
I think it's both. So I'm on page 75.
I'm looking on 32 of you, the business plan, where you've got a nice little chart there that says non-renewable resource revenue and millions of dollars, and you've got bitumen from 1.2 billion to 2.5 billion, essentially doubling it. So that's why I've asked. I think you would agree that's a good reason for me to ask that question.
Are you on page? Did you say 35?
32.
32. And I'll just point you to page 75 of the fiscal plan. It's got the importance of pipeline access, and your answer to your first question is in there.
Okay.
And the increase in bitumen royalties, and what's the? I think it says in the narrative the reason for bitumen royalties going up.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go back to the pipelines for a minute. Now, you told me, and it was a good answer, I appreciated it, that you're expecting pipeline revenue in 2020.
Sure.
Is that from both new pipelines or just one new pipeline, Minister?
Just let me look at the narrative.
And is that full year or partial year?
Okay. So the approval of Line 3 and Trans Mountain is critical. Line 3 is expected to come on 2020 and Trans Mountain 2021. AE estimates producers will receive 2 to 7 more per barrel. So there is, so they're paying less for freight in terms of full capacity on other pipelines or trains. Okay, and.
Okay, because you've got $2 billion in 2020, 2019, 2020 in new revenue.
Again.
So I'm presuming
you're on bitumen royalties now?
Yep, and bitumen royalties, yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on if you don't mind, Minister.
I know.
2016, the Minister Mason referred to Alberta's macroeconomic model as your source of budget forecasts. Have you made any changes to Alberta's macroeconomic model for the 2017 and beyond numbers?
Yes. So let me just get the, there is a rather excellent economic outlook section here, starting on page 63, and we would use that for the basis for the fiscal plan. The assumptions are on page 66, and so you can see what assumptions we had as actuals for 15-16, the estimates.
All right, well, that's good. I'm glad you pointed that, because that's my next question is, are you comfortable still knowing that, I think you said it earlier when you're answering questions for my colleague from the official opposition, that things change and you have to make different decisions. So are you still comfortable, still agree with the assumptions on the prices of oil and gas that are on page 66
Sure.
you just referred to?
Yeah, you know the process we take to come up with those estimates. We look at private sector forecasters and take the conservative numbers, and 55 for the fiscal year starting April 1 is seen as 2017 is seen as a conservative amount. We've risk adjusted that by $500 million. So today, for instance, it's 52 and change. We pretty much have covered that $55 barrel with the risk adjustment, brings it down to about $53. So yeah, we're comfortable with these in place.
Okay. What about your other indicators? Are you comfortable still with the other indicators on the employment percentage change, the unemployment rate, average weekly earnings, those types
so
of...
other indicators?
Other indicators. Any of those that are troubling you now, or are you still comfortable with what you put forward?
We're comfortable. Of course, I want to remind that Alberta created more than 20,000 full-time jobs last month. So
and that's really good after losing 200,000. But nonetheless, you got 10% of them back, and I congratulate you for that, Minister.
That number seems to get bigger all the time. It's 200,000
It does,
now.
and that's a grave concern to Albertans.
It's not accurate, but that's
bigger.
That's fine.
So, Minister, could you speak to the relative sizes of the public sector? How much do you expect it to,
FTEs.
in terms of FTEs? And I know it's in there, but because it's been a few months since this was printed,
Sure.
What do you expect your FTEs to change by during this year and next fiscal year?
If you just give me a second. To address the necessary program services Albertans require, we need to have FTEs to deliver some of those. Some of those go through agencies.
To collect the carbon tax and such. Yeah, I know you talked about that, $7 million.
Sure. So the size of the public service, we're second smallest public service per capita in the country. We want to ensure that every dollar is spent wisely on FTEs. We made a significant number of hiring decisions for child welfare, in particular, child protection.
This is all interesting, but I was hoping for a number in your answer at some point, Minister.
There is an FTE number. 871 FTEs. We show an increase of that many FTEs for the budget 2017. It includes crowns, court clerks, child protection.
All right, I got about a minute left, Minister.
Sure.
And I'm going to key off what you just said. You said that Alberta has the second lowest number of FTEs per capita, but we have by far, by a fair amount, the highest cost. So how do you square those? How do you bring those two numbers together? How do you explain that?
It is a challenge.
But how do you explain it, if you don't mind?
How do I explain that?
What you called a low number of FTEs versus a high cost per capita for the public service. How do you bring those two numbers together? What explains those two numbers?
We have an economic environment that compensates those people who are working for government at levels that are reflective of our economic growth and the labor market pressures that were in Alberta at the time. So I think there was a high cost.
So are you saying that government employees are well paid?
I'm saying government employees relative to other nonprofits are well paid, yes.
To other nonprofit, you consider government a nonprofit?
I do. I do.
All the way to the accountant.
Businesses that are nonprofits aren't around very long. Minister, the non-renewable resources make up $3.7 billion of the $45 billion expected. One of your major plans is to phase out coal, which will also eliminate or reduce the royalties Alberta earns. How do you plan to replace that structural loss in revenue when coal goes away?
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
So little.
We'll now move on to the member from the third party.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And again, if the Minister is kind enough, I'll share time with the Minister. Okay, Minister, Alberta's non-renewable resource revenues make up $3.7 billion of the $45 billion expected in 17-18. And of course, one of your government's major plans is to phase out coal and non-renewable energy, which of course will eliminate the royalties that go along with coal and non-renewable.
Not all of them.
Pardon me. If we're not producing coal, you're not going to get coal royalties anymore.
You qualified this by saying just coal, or did you talk about non-renewable resource revenue?
We'll deal with them separately. So with coal, okay. How are you going to deal with the lost? How are you going to make your budget whole with the coal royalties lost?
We are working to diversify our economy beyond those revenues.
Okay. Any particular industries do you see growing?
Yes.
Can you name one or several?
Sure. With regard to the petrochemical diversification program, we see that industry growing in Alberta.
Okay.
So that cheap feedstock will be used to upgrade into plastics.
So you're going to replace oil and gas revenue with oil and gas revenue with this further manufactured?
Petrochemical diversification is not oil and gas revenue, no.
Well, it's value added oil and gas.
Right.
You would agree with me on that.
It is value added.
There you go. So you're going to replace oil and gas revenue with value add, some of it with value added. All right. Have you modeled the impacts of that and to see whether what you gain will be more or less than what you lose?
The Economic Development, Trade, and the Energy Ministry have modeled what that new program will represent in terms of both capital investment and potential revenues. Yes. Okay.
Just for the record, it's not a new program. Value-added oil and gas has been around for a long time.
It's a new petrochemical facility will be developed as a result of this new program.
Yeah, it's a new one to add on to the many more that were already there. When you try to characterize it as a new industry, I think that's mischaracterizing it. So, yes?
I believe that it was not
at least acknowledge that the value-added oil and gas industry has been there for a long time.
There's a lot of petrochemical in this province, for sure.
And the value-added industry has been around for a long time.
And this will be a growing one. Okay,
so you included, as you said, a $500 million risk adjustment for 27-18, in case, as you said, your assumptions about the prices of commodities aren't right. So how did you arrive at that $500 million number?
Like we arrived at the $700 million number last year, we looked at the downside, the risk of not achieving $55, and modeled what could happen potentially from the forecasts that we also know are out there on the lower side.
Okay. On your 2017 fiscal plan, page 5 states that income support increased to $605 million with $257 million more for adult and children health care benefits.
Right.
That all sounds to me like good things, Minister. How many unemployed individuals will receive their maximum benefit in 2017 and be forced off income supports? I want to know whether you considered unintended consequences from what
Sure.
you've done.
The Ministry of Community Services is probably a better place to find out that information, as well as from the Minister of Labour.
But I'm only asking about the budget implications, Minister.
And how many more people will be unemployed?
No, just how I just wonder how many unemployed people will get their maximum benefits, and as what I'm assuming is an unintended consequence, be forced off income supports. And have you thought of that when you put this in place, so that we don't end up with people that need need these healthcare benefits getting less instead of more by accident, because of how the math works with the programs?
Yeah, and I probably need to direct you to those two other ministries more particularly.
All right. The ACE changes announced here, I think last week, since after the budget was announced, were they included in your budget numbers?
ACE is being reviewed, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the effects of the ACE review, is it going to change your budget?
The numbers here do not reflect any subsequent decisions made in that review.
All right. Have you done anything to assure people that are on ACE or in the application process that they'll still be looked after as a result of the review?
Oh, no, that's a commitment this government has made to. Yeah, it's statutory in nature, so Albertans who qualify know that they are eligible for those monies.
All right, that's pretty important. I think you would agree with me, to not leave those people on ACE now, or they might need it in a position where they'd be
No,
afraid
I
of
think
losing
you'd
their
agree
benefits.
that this government has followed its promise in that regard, as well as people on Alberta Works.
Okay. Thank you for that, Minister. I think we both agree that
Yeah.
those people, disabled people, need to be
Vulnerable
looked after.
Albertans need to be supported.
Albertans
You
need to be
bet.
looked after. Moving on, again, the carbon tax rebates. How are they reaching Albertans who don't file income tax or have fixed addresses, i.e. homeless people, for example? Are they getting their rebates?
It's based on income tax returns.
So if you don't file, you don't get it.
That's correct.
All right.
As well as the Alberta Child Benefit. You don't file, you don't get that. And hopefully more people, all people are filing.
All right. So presumably homeless people won't qualify unless they find a way to file income tax.
Yeah, and many shelters and other places, social agencies help people who are of no fixed address to file their income taxes.
Okay. Last year you said the budget was a shock absorber, concerned about the oil prices. Do you know the exact number of recovered jobs you attribute to the economic recovery? You said 20,000 earlier. Is that all of them?
No, that is what happened in March of 2017. So I could get those numbers, but again, those ministers, particularly the Minister of Labour, has probably got them more at her fingertips.
All right. You disagreed with me earlier on the number up to 200,000 people unemployed. I know Stats Canada, looking at it here, shows 100,000 people, but of course that doesn't include contractors, people who are self-employed, and doesn't include people that have stopped given up looking for work for whatever reason. What's your number of how many people are unemployed?
Well, that number may be that you have maybe your view. I go by
that's
Stats
actually
Canada.
that number. I'm looking at Stats Canada numbers right now, so it's not my view, Minister.
Okay, I was just going to conclude by saying I believe the Stats Canada numbers.
Okay. All right. Well, the other Stats Canada numbers that are included in the same report shows that since the month that your government took government, the people in the labor force grew by 50,500 people. The number of full-time jobs have decreased by 60,000, and the part-time jobs have increased by 43,000. So, what are you doing with your financial policy to reverse that trend and having whatever new jobs that happen be full-time instead of part-time?
We are following through with the capital plan, which is now for 4 years. It's about $30 billion, and it will see the creation and sustainment of 10,000 jobs per year over the next 3 years. We have invested in the petrochemical diversification program, as I mentioned, and there are 3,000 new jobs during construction of that add-on to those plants, and 1,000 jobs each continuing when those operations begin. The modernized royalty framework, which industry has roundly supported, has more than 200 rigs drilling now, and each supporting 135 jobs each. We returned STEP. Unfortunately, your government cut that. We brought that back, and 3,000 students found gainful employment last summer. We'll continue to find it.
Okay, and all of this isn't getting the jobs replaced that we lost. Anything else up your sleeve that'll get that done?
Yes, the capital plan is important. Sorry.